The Hives are officially back. And my god, does music need a band like the Hives right now? After a 10-year hiatus, well actually over 10 years. Wish I could take a 10-year hiatus with my job. Stick to the script, Sanjay, stick to the script. That way you can avoid dealing with your existential crisis. Yes, the Hives are back and they haven't aged a bit. The band have just released their 6th studio album entitled The Death of Randy Fitzsimmons. And boy, what an album this is. Let's get into it. But before we do, just letting you guys know that I could have gone to see the Hives myself, performed live at Rough Trade Records in London this evening. I would have met the band, gotten a signed copy of their album, but no. I'm here making this video for you guys. So if that doesn't warrant a like on the video or a sub to the channel, then I don't know what does. All jokes aside, it does help tiny channels like mine out. So please do consider it. Back to the video. Now, for all you Gen Zs and Gen Alphas watching this, you likely would have been a small child when the Swedish rock band The Hives were taking the world by storm. With mega hits such as Tick Tick Boom and Hate to Say I Told You So, their sound has stood the test of time. When you put those records on today, they still sound huge and distinct and unmistakably Hives. Known for their high energy garage rock sound, the Hives were very much in that category of band in that first indie wave back in the early 2000s. They were part of the scene that started the whole thing. Think bands like The Strokes, The Vines, The White Stripes, The Libertines. Those bands were pre-Arctic Monkeys, pre-The Kooks, pre-Kasabian, pre-Snow Patrol, pre-The Kaiser Chiefs. All of those bands were in the second wave of bands doing this thing. And to put it plainly, without The Strokes and The Hives, there would be no Arctic Monkeys. And that probably goes for several other bands that are still around today. Pele, Hives frontman, recently said in an interview with the NME that Arctic Monkeys actually went to see The Strokes and The Hives play live. And it was those very gigs all those years ago that actually inspired the guys to start a band. It's amazing that the band are now touring together. The Monkeys really have gone full circle on that one. I digress. So the Hives are back after 10 years, and I feel like that needs addressing. So just before we dive into the album, let's just start with that, because it is very strange for any band to have been gone for this long. So the new album is called The Death of Randy Fitzsimmons. But who is Randy Fitzsimmons, I hear you ask? Well, turns out it's the band's songwriting pseudonym. In interviews, the band described this illustrious man as the brains of the band and the writer of all their songs. When he died under mysterious circumstances, the band went on hiatus until the unanswered questions surrounding his death led the band to excavate his grave. Rather than a corpse, the casket held the music and lyrics for a new Hives album, and thus the band returned. Now, of course, none of this is true. The real reason for the band's unusually long hiatus was down to health problems. We know that sickness and surgery has prevented the band from maintaining their momentum throughout the 2010s, although we don't know the full details. I think the title lends itself well to the theme of the album. The album, at least to my ears and when you read the song titles, serves as a bit of a metaphorical exploration for rebirth and renewal, and it explores the concept of death and morality in depth. So, does it live up to expectations? Well, the band's last album before they went on hiatus, Lex Hives, was released in June 2012, and in my view it was a bit of a disappointing follow-up to their insanely good album, the Black and White album, which had tunes like Tick Tick Boom on it, for example. During the band's break, we've heard that the band took time to recharge creatively and personally, and although the band took a step back from making music, Pele said in a recent interview with the NME that the songs eventually started coming, and when they did, the process of making the album was super quick. The band spent a year writing, and they recorded the whole record in the studio in 4 or 5 weeks. Nicholas went on to say in the same interview that the band had actually been trying to make this record for a very long time. Health-related issues had inevitably gotten in the way, but recently things have clicked. So, the album then. Well, it's just absolutely cracking. Definitely album of the year for me so far. Banger after banger from start to finish. Bogus Operandi, the album's opener, is probably my favourite song of the year so far. Feels like forever since we've had a song with such a great guitar riff that has so much attitude and groove to it. Just makes you want to dance, doesn't it? Just makes you want to dance. Bogus Operandi was obviously the first single from the album, so it's been out for a while now, but I'm still not over it. Such a great opener as well. That song followed by Trapdoor Solution, Countdown to Shutdown, and then Rigor Mortis Radio makes for a very, very strong first half of the album. It's just banger after banger, high energy single after high energy single. The second half of the album definitely has less of of what you'd call conventional single type songs. But it's actually quite an interesting listen to me. I was surprised. I thought we'd get 12 bogus operandis. And yes, all of their songs sound the same. The Hives know that. Everybody knows that. It's just what they do. Don't get me wrong though, it is mostly that. But songs on the second half of the album, like What Did I Ever Do To You, have almost an 80s influence with those gated drums and shimmering synth parts, which helps to give the second half of the record an interesting change of pace. Maybe a few more of those would have served the album quite well. Successful return for the band? I think so. And I've been reflecting on why I love this album so much. Like, what about the album is making me want to get up and dance and break stuff? And I think it's the humanity of it all. The album sounds like it was made in the 2000s, in the sense that it's not super polished like modern albums. It definitely feels like it was made in the same way as the band's previous records. It's interesting because Pele also said in that Enemy interview that he felt that the music that the Hives were making for this album needed to exist. And when I listen to this record, I completely agree. For me, in a world where music is becoming increasingly less diverse, more polished, more quantized, more robotic, more software based, less energetic and attitude-y, this album is such a breath of fresh air. The drum groove alone on Rigor Mortis Radio is just something else. It's so simple, but when you hear that in and amongst programmed beat after programmed beat in your playlist, your ears prick up because it's not the norm, and you kind of just want to stand up and have a dance because that groove really swings, and it just sounds human. Same with the vocals on the song Stick Up. They're doubled up in the chorus, but they're not super precise. And the resulting effect is that it just sounds so powerful. And you can sort of imagine yourself in the middle of that noise at a gig. Absolutely brilliant work. So there you go guys, a fantastic album full of high energy, loud and fast paced and heavy guitars. And most importantly, human sounding songs. The kind of stuff that is hard to come by in 2023. It definitely sounds to me like a blast from the past. Very nostalgic. And the record sounds exactly how the band sound live for me. No frills, no clever Pro Tools wizardry to help them sound uber polished, just unapologetic, old fashioned rock and roll. And I'm here for it. And I hope you are too, because it's bloody fantastic. And I feel like music needs an album like this right now. If you guys don't have tickets to see the Hives live, or if you've not seen them before live, then I'd suggest you get tickets. Pele is an unbelievable frontman. Probably the best in the business today. Hilarious, energetic, funny. I reckon he could win over any crowd. Do hit that like button to show your support. A subscribe to the channel will be hugely appreciated. And speaking about humanity in music, if you are wondering what to watch next, then you might be interested in learning about the hit album written by AI that nobody knows about. And I'll put a few links to some of those videos on screen round about now. Thank you ever so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.